looking to date or marry a Filipino woman, I'm begging you to stop doing this. So if you're moving to the Philippines or falling in love with someone in a different culture, it can become very beautiful or it can become a nightmare. But there's a word I want to use, adapting, but that doesn't mean you need to lose yourself in adapting to the culture or the relationship with a Filipino woman. In this video, we take a deep dive into the culture, the relationships, what to look out for, and how to not lose yourself at the same time, still adapting to the circumstances, to the environment. So stick around to the very end, and you will learn how to love and embrace either the culture and or a loved one without losing yourself. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, my name is Gil. I am a business consultant living in the Philippines, Cebu City to be specific, and I also do life coaching and accountability coaching as well for leadership teams as well as individuals. If that sounds like you, comment down below and or hit my calendar and reserve some time with me. So with that said, let's get right into the video. Number one, understanding the Filipino culture. You might have seen this in many videos. Hopefully I can give you more insight and more value because I am Filipino. I'm Filipino-American, to be honest with you. I'm pretty mixed, but I identify as a Filipino. So Filipino culture, just like many cultures, is rich in cultural values. With that said, there's also hiya or ula, which is shame. There's pakikisama, which is like getting along with each other, or in Bisaya is like magsinabot. And there's utang na loob, but it's like a debt of gratitude, or like you owe me one, or that mindset here. These cultural values shape relationships, and I want you to really understand if you're planning to date a Filipina or a Filipino, if you're a woman out there, or you're in one already and you're kind of frustrated sometimes. So I want you to ask these questions as well. Because I asked myself, because I've been married to my wife for almost 20 years, how do these values affect your sense of self? And are you adjusting to these values if you don't believe in them? And are you adjusting to these values because you actually want to, or do you feel pressured in adjusting to these values? Now, understanding these nuances helps you fit in without losing your voice. Number two, now is there a pressure to adapt? Unfortunately, whether it's culture or a significant other, comes with significant silent expectations. Like changing your food preferences, adopting new routines, and moreover, modifying your communication style. Now, I'm from New York, so I'm very blunt and very, just out there. My wife, unfortunately, is Filipino. We kind of had a clash very early in our relationship as to how to communicate with each other. But more importantly, in your situation, where do you draw the line? So, what I want you to really understand is adapting doesn't mean that you're losing or giving up yourself. It's basically putting another platform or foundation for you to grow with that person or with that culture, because this is super essential in wanting to, if you're actually wanting to stay there long term, whether it's a relationship with a country, you have to be open. You don't want to bring all your baggage and or ideologies too much into the new country, something that is very different. People say things differently. People do things differently. So you got to be really open to those things, because I've seen it too many times where many expats come here in this country, especially Americans. They come into the country and then first thing is, why not that? Why not this? Why not that? I truly understand the frustrations. However, understand that if you don't want those frustrations in your life, don't go to the said country and or be linked up with the woman there or the other man or whatever. At one point, you have to be really accountable to yourself. Are you willing to change for that person or the country to some degree? Obviously, there's non-negotiables that everyone should have. Like I have my non-negotiables, but to a great degree, you also have to be adaptable. If you're not that, you probably don't belong here, to be honest with you, or any country for that matter, or any relationship for that matter. Because for those who comment down below, if you've been married for a long time or been with your partner for so long, or your significant other, that don't tell me you haven't changed X amount of years. There's so many. It's like Bruce Lee said, be like water at the end of the day, right? Number three, here are some common challenges that I've identified within my personal life as well as other people that I speak with. Let's just talk about three, because there's probably a lot, but let's talk about the top three. Here's the three: family influence, social expectations, and communication styles. Families here, unfortunately, are very involved, like deeply involved sometimes. Now, the question always for me was, how do I stay respectful while I assert boundaries? Me personally, my wife and I had a common agreement, and it hasn't been broken for years, the time we're together. We don't expose our issues, our marital issues, to her family or my family. We keep it to ourselves. As in, even friends and family, we don't open up to other people and like, hey, do I need help with this? Or like, look, or I don't talk shit about my wife to other expats, to other family members, or anything like that, because you have to understand that can dictate certain pressures of he's not shit, or she's this, she's that, or he's this, he's that. You have to be really, for me, I'm really a firm believer in that that unity is sacred. And obviously, if you're not getting beat, you're not getting, not to, the crazy spectrum, but if you have a regular marriage, issues are going to happen. Usually common disagreements are going to be financial, pretty much it. And, like ideologies. But nonetheless, those things don't come out really to the family, because they don't want to hear that all the time. And more importantly, I've learned that exposing the worst parts of your relationships to your friends and your family, sometimes it creates an image of them, and then there's animosity, there's a buildup, and I've never wanted that. So that's one thing that I've done within my life, and my wife and I. So when somebody says what's going on, it's taken care of already, nothing crazy. Or I assert those boundaries in that way. Now, social expectations, from like religion all the way to roles in the household, how do you navigate that without building any resentment, any animosity? Now, this is me talking because this is how I conduct my life. I'm pretty traditional, I'm very conservative. So I'm a firm believer in then, my wife and I are very equal in what we do and how we bring value to the relationship. However, there's certain things that I ask of her, and there's certain things that she asks of me. We know our roles in our relationships. There's never been a time where that what's called now, like the independent woman and things like that. I know what the strengths and the weaknesses of my wife are, and she probably knows the strengths and weaknesses of myself. However, we know our roles when it comes to, because my wife's pretty traditional as well, and these are the things that I expect from you. And as long as we're meeting in the middle in that sense, we're always going to have mutual respect for each other, to be honest with you. So it's never been an issue. Now, if we do have a disagreement, maybe it's easier for me because I speak the dialect. I dig into it. I lean into it as in, hey, what's the matter? What's wrong? I need to, and usually it's the silent treatment in the very beginning. But eventually it's like, listen, if we don't address this, and I'm very, and the word is frank, blunt. If we don't address this, we're not going to last. I tell them straight up right now. And then over the years, my wife and I have gone to the point where we're just open with ourselves. Like, I don't like this because this happened. Then I truly understand, like, oh, okay, I effed up. Totally understand. I'm going to do my best not to do that again. Which goes into the third one, communication styles. Filipinos often communicate indirectly, unfortunately. It's not that face-to-face thing, and it gets really weird, but because even in the very beginning, my wife used to be very silent. I'm more of a talker in the disagreement, I'll be honest with you. I'm more of the vocal one. My wife shuts down, doesn't talk. I don't like that. At the end of the day, if we don't communicate, that's where issues happen, to be honest with you. But one thing I realized over the years is I try my best to communicate myself without being offensive. Being from New York, that's really hard because, you're dropping F-bombs and the problem is here, saying being vulgar, some of the Filipinos will take it the wrong way, like as in they'll take it personally rather than you just expressing yourself like most Americans. The problem is, I didn't realize that in the very beginning. But so I had to adapt myself into how I communicate with my wife, because at the end of the day, number one, I don't want to see her hurt. That's number one. Number two, I don't want to have this thing go on for days, weeks, months, or hopefully not years. And I want to put it to bed. Just wanted to put it to bed. I don't care if we have to talk for 24 hours. We're going to deal with this because I just don't want to deal with this afterwards. But that works for us. I don't know about you, but you have to find that way to really look and really understand, your partner's point of view. And even culturally, really, zoom out and be like, what can I do to get really strong cohesion and really good communication in this situation. Because at the end of the day, if you don't master that, it's going to be an issue, to be honest with you, or try to master it. If you're not consistently working on it, if you're going to go in there like, my way's the highway, it is what it is, F you, you're going to come into some problems, I'll be honest with you. And last but not least, number 4, staying true to yourself. This is like a teeter-totter. You have to really be okay with the ebbs and flows of this particular concept of staying true to yourself. But these are the things that have worked for me. The key to this is balance, and here's how I did it. So I set personal boundaries for myself, as in, you're not disconnecting to the situation, but you're setting boundaries as to, these are my non-negotiables, right? These are my non-negotiables. As in, like, if you don't respect this particular situation, this particular thing that I'm asking, I don't think it's going to work out. So, as in, like, I'll give you a great example. With my wife and I, or just people in general, I'll tell them straight up, like, the moment that you do something that makes you want to not trust you, or you're not trustworthy, I've lost faith in it already. I don't really want to deal with that anymore. So, that's my non-negotiable. When people start, like, even on a deeper layer, people start like asking for money in weird ways, like, oh, like giving me the sob stories and things like that. I tell people straight up, I'm not here to hear that all the time. It's a bit annoying, and then I probably won't talk to them anymore. I've done that to many times. I've done that to employees of mine. As in, like, every time I speak with them, it's always like, oh, life is hard. It could be like, oh, so-and-so got into an accident. It's like dropping hints that you want more money from me type thing. When I start hearing those things, or like little off-the-cuff jokes, or, you know, these type of things, that's like one of my non-negotiables. Once I hear that, I'll tell them, listen, I don't want to hear that anymore. You know, we're both here to work. If it's like a colleague, or, you know, or if it's like a family member, like, everyone has a hard time here, and I don't want to directly insult them, but I just disengage, I disconnect, because any more further interaction from that is just going to make me frustrated, to be honest with you. So I set clear boundaries for myself, and given the opportunity, I'll just draw the line with many people. And the next one is I find common ground. You know, obviously being in sales for a good number of times, being in leadership roles, you try your best to be as diplomatic as possible, as fair as possible, and try to find common ground consistently to try to, deliver your message, and to get your, try to deliver your message and get your point across without offending people, right? Because, on a business point of view, you're really fighting for the vision and your mission to be, complete, and you want to conquer those things. So you have to find ways to try to keep driving people towards there without offending them, without, it's just a constant adjustment every single day. Well, understand that you're going to be blending your cultures, whether you're American and Filipino, you're going to be blending your cultures. So you're going to have to find some common ground. Like, for instance, like, you might not like going out to, with hanging out with friends and family. So find a common interest that you do like going. Let's say, for instance, you like, I don't know what it is in the Philippines, but let's say, for instance, you actually like just going to the beach because you enjoy the beach. Find some common ground where you can invite those friends and families to the beach. If they don't come, they don't come at the end of the day. But you can build a common ground as to, okay, like, who doesn't love the beach anyway, to be honest with you? But you can find that common ground to be, to something that you like and they like, and then try to find that common ground. Obviously many Filipinos, they love having a great time. So having a few drinks, having a little cookout, they're good already to a great degree. Now, finding common ground means also you need to pull away when everyone starts getting too drunk and the things start happening where everyone's asking for help sometimes, everyone's going through the sob stories and things like that, and people might get a bit too irritated when they start getting drunk. Find some common ground. Once you get there, you should be okay. I mean, I blended in with my situation with my wife and her family, initiating the conversation, initiating the interaction, because many of them unfortunately believe that, and this is really weird, it's a hierarchy of how things work here. They believe I'm so much higher in life, they don't deserve to talk to me. So, which is really weird, but that's something I'm not used to. But they think that I don't speak the dialect, so they don't want to have the nosebleed, or they don't want to talk English because it's too intellectually challenging for them. So I try to find common ground by, one, trying my best to learn the dialect. That's what I did. Two, just initiating conversations, initiating the interactions. I'm pretty tired with many people in Ruby's family. And last but not least, in a way for me to not lose myself, open communication. I haven't really changed my way of communicating with people. I might come off offensive, to be honest with you, but I tell them how it is, but with respect. That's like the number one thing. I don't tell, not as an example, I don't say, you effing Filipinos do this and do that. No, that's very offensive. I usually say, like, I find that Filipinos here do X. And I find that really weird because they don't do that in America. But I totally understand why things can happen because it's cultural. And that's usually how I segue into other things. Now, or I ask people like, hey, why, or I just people like, why do Filipinos do this and do that? I tell them in a question form because it doesn't seem offensive. And to some degree, they're gonna maybe down there somewhere to the talking to a Filipino, you kind of have to hold yourself accountable to a great degree, culturally sometimes as well. I try to get into it that way because Filipinos are very big on like ulaw or like being shamed or dignity, dignidad, like they don't want to feel like they're being shamed or put down or things like that. It's a very big thing in the Filipino culture. So when I deal with people, like as in like great example, I brought this up to another Filipino, they couldn't really answer me. Maybe you guys comment down below if you guys can. This is the question. Filipinos are always complaining about not having enough money, not having enough opportunity, like they're having a hard time in life. However, if you see Filipino traffic, they drive as if they don't care about their life. So just put that in perspective for me, okay? As in like, when you sit down and talk to very nice people, life is just hard. A slew of reasons. But then when they get on a motorcycle, zipping through, accidents, prone to accidents, or anything can happen, and this one is chaos. Why such a contradiction? That's a question I pose to many Filipinos. Some answers were like, oh, that's something that they can control the way they drive, but they can't control the economy. But to some degree, I disagree with that because, honestly, there are poor people in my family. My dad was one of them before he rose up and stuff like that. It can happen. It just takes a lot of hard work, a little bit of luck, but consistency is the key. So comment down below what you think about that statement I just made about, Filipinos, driving without a care in life, but at the same time complaining that they don't have enough money because when they get into an accident, they complain about having no money to pay the bills. But then why did you put yourself in a situation where you're driving recklessly? I don't know. I look forward to those comments, to be honest with you. So in conclusion, adapting to the Filipino culture or adapting to your wife's or husband's culture doesn't mean that you're losing yourself. It just means that you're adding another portion of yourself to obviously, hopefully, get better at adapting, get better at being understanding. It's a whole slew of benefits that you can benefit from, to be honest with you, in being adaptable. And hopefully, you're becoming a better version of yourself, a richer version of yourself, that one keeps you grounded and keeps you connected. So in my 40 years of living, I realized love is a journey, relationships are a journey, so is your identity. I realize that as I'm getting older, your identity shifts from time to time, or it's like, analogy-wise, if identity was a bucket, from the time you're born till the time you're not here anymore, you're just adding and taking away out of that bucket. Hopefully refining it to the point where it's some good stuff in there. Obviously it's never going to be, really good stuff, but there's going to be a little bit of darkness there. But hopefully at the end of the day, even for me specifically speaking, and hopefully it'll be a bucket of like the best version of me and things to consistently work on. So if you enjoyed that video, please do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and more importantly, comment down below because I read every single comment. I would love for you to share your thoughts, your experiences, and I just want to know, how are you navigating through your adjustments here in the Philippines, whether it be with a country or with love? Let me know because I'm really intrigued to find out because I can always add that into my bucket. Take care, God bless, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.